Hello, welcome to the Perfect Strangers podcast. My name is Noah Alvarez. I'll be your host. My cousin Jordan Alvarez is doing all the behind-the-scenes work. This is actually the second take of this video, and the only reason for that is because the first video I went through 45 minutes of talking, and then at the very end, Jordan sent me a text and said I had to run to a meeting, and then Jordan sent me a text and said, hey, so we have good news and bad news. I got the computer up to do the editing software. The bad news is you couldn't hear a word you were saying. So Jordan was manning the mic. So this is our second take at it. So we'll see how this goes. But again, right now we're really just trying to get off the ground, right? The whole idea behind the podcast is really for myself to have a learning experience, to be able to learn from all the awesome guests that we're going to get to bring on. We have a really great list of people that I want to connect to, and then also connect with new people. Right, I would deem both of them as perfect strangers. The people that I have no idea about yet, of course, they're a stranger, and I'm so interested to kind of get to know them on a more personal level. Hopefully they feel comfortable enough to do that. Whoever watches this, I'm going to keep referring to you guys as the audience. There's a good chance that it's probably only going to be about two people. Hopefully my dad and my grandparents watch it. So whoever the audience ends up being, we're really doing this again as a learning experience. I think I'll get to connect with new business owners and new people in the business realm, employees and people with all different types of backgrounds. That's really the whole point of this podcast. So we're going to kind of start in different segments. So we do a thing at our church, Real Life Church. I'm going to take a page out of Rusty George's book. He would be an awesome guest that hopefully gets to come onto this podcast, or hopefully we get the privilege of having him on this podcast. But he kind of takes he does different segments. So our first segment on this podcast is going to be called Perspectives. And the whole idea behind it is that take the same 15 questions and ask the same 15 questions to different people and just see how their responses are different. And I think for me, it's going to really kind of open up my eyes to some of my questions. What we're going to do tonight is I'm going to take you guys, maybe it's two people, through each of the questions and then see how I answer them. At the very end of the segment, I don't know if that's going to be 30, 40, or 50 episodes. Maybe it's 2. Maybe we stop doing the podcast after tonight if Jordan can't get the volume to work. So I'm going to take you guys through these 15 questions. I'm going to answer them for you tonight to the best of my ability. And then I'm going to do a recap at the very end of the segment and say, basically my favorite answer out of all the awesome people that we're going to get to connect with. So again, the name Perfect Strangers, I'll explain it a little bit later in the podcast. Essentially, the whole idea behind it was, well, first and foremost, it is a song from my favorite artist, Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne is someone, as a lot of people say, people in music have kind of, positively affected their lives. Lil Wayne is someone who, me growing up playing sports, and then me now even on the short drive I have from my house into the office, he is someone that I do feel gives me a little bit of an edge, right? I love his music. Of course, not all the messaging is great that on the stuff that he talks about, but I feel like I've been able to, even if it sounds goofy, to connect with Lil Wayne on a different level, and he gives me some level of an edge. So Perfect Strangers is a Lil Wayne song, but the deeper meaning to that, which we'll get into a little bit more further down the line, it actually is one of the last questions here. I think it's very good. I think it's going to be very relevant to this podcast. So the first question, we're just going to get right into it. So the first question is, what motivates you? For me, absolutely what motivates me, my greatest motivation is my family. And that starts with with my beautiful mother. She passed away when I was 16 years old, and that is by far my greatest motivation piece. It was the epitome of losing someone that means the entire world to you, and I literally wake up every day right now to make her proud. So that's my first piece of motivation. Moving on in my family, it goes straight to my dad, who is my biggest role model. My father, Michael Alvarez Jr., always held the standard so high for me. And literally growing up as an Alvarez kid, you didn't have any other option but to be great. And so I cannot let my father down, so I must be great in whatever I am doing. Truly, my dad does not care really what I am doing, but if I'm going to do something, be the best at it. So that's my second piece of motivation, going down to my brother, Michael, who's also my business partner, and Michael's a big baller. And that's probably the smartest person I know, especially on the analytical side. And when you hang out with big ballers, and again, I'm going to kind of use phrases that I know and that I kind of grew up with, so I'm going to refer to people a lot as big baller and stuff like that. That's just kind of how my dad used to talk to us. So Michael's a big baller, so if you want to hang out with a big baller, you want to be around a big baller, you got to be a big baller. So those three pieces of motivation, and then, of course, my beautiful grandparents who have been there for me every step of my life, my awesome sister, my girlfriend, and then also my friends and the people that are close to me. But my family and those three individuals that I spoke about is for sure my biggest motivation piece. So this is question number 2, how did you start your career? So I'm very interested to hear some of our guests that come on that get to answer that question, just how they ended up in their position, right? Like, how did Jeff Bezos, we're not going to have Jeff Bezos on the podcast, maybe one day if we get big enough, but how did he get to the point of starting Amazon, right? I read so many articles about it, but nothing's really true, and I think we're going to be able to get these people onto the podcast, and hopefully they can shed some light. And everybody's, my high school baseball coach, Jim Ozella, my dad loves this quote, there's no straight line to success. Right, so there's so many ways to get there. There's so many ways to reach financial freedom or to have a successful business, whatever that means to you. But it's how did you start that? So I'm very excited to ask this question to different people. But for me, I'll just kind of and this, some of this is so you guys, maybe it's 2 people, are going to become a little bit more familiar with me. So my brother and I, when I was 18 years old, a sophomore in college, had a unique opportunity to start our own company. We just started an S Corp, and it was an entity to go out and invest in something. We didn't know exactly what that was going to be. We had one of my high school football coaches bring us an opportunity to purchase a local restaurant in our hometown of Santa Clarita. And that restaurant was Sharkies in Valencia. He actually went to my dad first, and my dad was not in a position at the time in his career to purchase a restaurant. He was very busy with the things that he had going on. And literally 2 weeks before, Michael and I had just started our entity, Alvy Bros Inc. Well, my dad brought the deal to us. Obviously, it was a huge risk. We couldn't really wrap our heads around it. We huddled around, had very long and tough discussions about what we wanted to do. And ultimately, me and Michael made the decision that investing in this Sharkies restaurant was a good thing for us to do, and I would say that it's turned into a great thing and the best thing that we possibly could have done at that particular moment. The restaurant Sharkies, it's an awesome franchise model. They essentially give you a packet. My brother and I are not restaurant people at all. They hand you a packet and take you through a 10-week training program, and then you're a certified owner-operator. So that's what we did. It's pretty much a plug-and-play, but what it allowed us to do was get around people, right? It allowed us to understand margin and pro formas and budgeting and operations, but the most important thing that Sharkies taught us that we still get to carry with us today is how to manage people. And it's not tricky. It's very difficult, and part of the reason is because you're dealing with perfect strangers, right? And you're dealing with all these different types of people trying to get to one goal, or you hope that they're invested to reach that one goal. Sharkies has been a beautiful blessing for us. It's an asset that we still love. We love being in our hometown. We love being able to give back to our community through the restaurant, and that was how we got into Sharkies. Probably one of the things that people know the least about me is that I have the privilege and the joy and the honor, truly an honor, to do business development and sales work for our family business, P3. So my father went out and he retired, and then he ended up partnering with Fred Lewis and Roland Williams. And between Michael Alvarez Jr., Fred Lewis, and Roland Williams, and those will absolutely be 3 of the best episodes, I guarantee, that we have on this podcast, getting to learn from those guys, have formed P3. P3 is a very powerful company that, again, from my perspective, being able to learn from 3 guys that I absolutely look up to and understand the way that they view business, and they have no idea, but every time we're on these, we call them ramp calls, our weekly calls, every time any of those 3 individuals talks, I'm just taking notes. Like, you can truly learn so much from them. And honestly, those 3 even inspired me to do something like this, because I was like, man, those 3 are some of the most impressive individuals I've ever met, and successful businessmen, and I can learn so much from them. What else is out there, right? So Fred Lewis, Michael Alvarez Jr., and Roland Williams are 3 of the biggest ballers I've ever met in my entire life. We cannot wait to have them on this podcast, and I have the honor to work with the family business. That's how I started that career of getting in and having a role at P3. I also started, I have my real estate license, so I currently am selling under Berkshire Hathaway. The way I got into that was just simply, I just took the class, right? I was around a lot of people, and older people in business always say, man, I know so many people. I wish I would have gotten my real estate license, because I could monitor, I could leverage my relationships that I have now. So I didn't want to be that guy. right? So I was very simple for me. I was very prideful in college that I had to stay a step above everybody. I wanted to have that kind of edge, and I felt like while everyone else was out partying and while everyone else was out drinking and enjoying the college lifestyle, I wanted to set myself up better for my future. Again, that's just the way that I was kind of thinking. I don't take too much of that to heart. I think people can enjoy their college experience, but for me, I really wanted to set myself up for after college. So I went out, I took the course during my junior year, and I just added it in as a class, right? I took 4 classes a semester for 2 straight semesters. I just had a 5th class, right? And that's how I treated it. I took the program. It took me about a year. I got my license, and I've sold a couple homes just recently this past year with Mike Rosigno, and that's how I got into the real estate game. And then absolutely my biggest pride and joy and the best thing I have in my life outside of my family, immediate friends, and my girlfriend is Alvy Delivers. And Alvy Delivers is a transportation company that my brother and I were able to start. The company actually started on January 1st. It's a spinoff of another transportation company I had for about a year and a half called WeGo. And the way I got into that business was just being around my father's company growing up. He did transportation services in-house, and then he outsourced them. I was able to watch both his company and then kind of competitors and just watch this transportation game come together. And I truly felt that with all this technology and all these different solutions being implemented, the one thing that would always stay physical was you have to transport some level of product. So that was kind of the whole idea behind doing a transportation company and kind of we're getting to that courier logistics space. My original idea was actually to do like a DoorDash for retail clothes, right? So for Macy's, I got in contact with some really smart people, much smarter than me. Scott Capistrano being the first one. Awesome. Another gentleman I hope we get to have a very successful businessman on this podcast. He kind of steered me in probably an opposite direction than the one I wanted to go in. I'm very thankful for Scott Capistrano. If he didn't guide me in the right direction and kind of not shoot down my dream, but get analytical with me and provide the challenges that was going to provide, I would probably still be trying to chase after a dream that was not going to really be obtainable at the end of the day. So I ended up shifting from that. I ended up doing a little bit of food delivery while always having this courier corporate logistics space, in the back of my head, and that was kind of my true desire. So we had the company was called WeGo for a little bit. We did that for about a year and a half, and then an opportunity came up, towards the end of 2020. And my brother, I think I kind of sparked interest in him and kind of what we had going on there, and he expressed interest in partnering with me. And the biggest blessing I have in my life was being able to be courageous enough first to get out of the to let WeGo go and to go on this other path, and we created Alvy Delivers starting January 1st of 2021, and it is truly the most exhilarating thing that I've ever done in my life, and I'm so excited about it. You'll hear plenty about Alvy Delivers throughout other episodes, I'm very, very fortunate that I was able to partner with my brother, and that's how I started that career. Those are the 4 things that I'm currently doing today, and those are kind of all the startups on how I got there. So question number 3. Sorry, number 2 was so long and drawn out. It's probably a little bit self-centered, but now you guys all know a little bit more about me. So number 3, what challenges have you faced, or what's one experience that has made you who you are today? No doubt about it. That's probably the easiest question. The passing of my mother, July 21st, 2014, is the hardest moment I've ever had, and it will be the hardest moment I will ever have to have. And I think as difficult as that was, going through something like that at a younger age, it was simply just a turning point in my life. And I now know today that nothing will ever be that hard. And I survived it, and it made me better. It made me stronger. I don't dwell on the fact that I don't have my mother here today. I dwell on the fact that I had her for 16 beautiful, awesome years, and she truly made me who I am today. And that experience has just made me a better person. And that's who I am today. I love my mom. I miss my mom, and all I do is, like how I answered question 1, is just try to honor her. What do you value most? I think that's a good question, and another one I'm super excited to kind of hear. A lot of these questions are kind of tailored to have a little bit more explanation, right? They're not obviously, I don't want just yes or no answers, and get people to challenge their thought process a little bit. I know even drafting some of these questions, I was, you don't really ask yourself these questions. You don't really ask another person, these questions. My father, I'm excited to have him come on here, and when we talk, I don't look for answers to these questions from him, right? So I'm excited to hear some of those answers. But what do you value most? I would say for me, I I value my family and my family, and then close relationships, right? Close relationships that develop with what I would deem as perfect strangers, and these people that come into your life that change your life. Relationships are everything. And whether it's your family or these close relationships that are developed, whether it's personal or business, that's what I myself value most. Question number 5, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given, and the worst? I would say the best piece of advice, and this is something that comes directly from both my parents, my mom and my dad. Before I even get into that, one thing I want to say too is that my parents did an awesome job, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, on making sure that they were consistent in their messaging to us. Right? I think as any leader, whether it's kids, whether you're trying to be a leader in a relationship or you're trying to be a leader in business, very important that if you have multiple people managing and you have multiple leaders, that they are being consistent in their messaging, right? We learned that at Sharkies. If I said something and our GM, Victor Cruz, said something opposite, you're literally going to have a cash register look at a customer and say the wrong thing because the two leaders had differing opinions about something. So it's very important that you're consistent. But something that they instilled in us was the phrase, kill them with kindness, right? And my dad would say, kill them with kindness. And I think that becomes so important, particularly in business as you go throughout, and it's the concept of the customer's always right, and I think even in personal relationships that we're put in very tough situations, right? Frustrating situations, and we have our own personal stuff. But to be able to deal with these strangers that I deem as right, we're gonna keep going back to the theme, perfect strangers. You have to kill them with kindness, right? You're not always right, they're not always right, but at the end of the day, what I've seen lead to the most success is swallow it a little bit sometimes and kill them with kindness, right? Kindness at the end of the day is going to win. And, it's not always easy to be super, super nice and laughing and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, killing them with kindness, particularly in business, is the best way to go. So I would say that's probably one of the best pieces of advice that I've been given. And the worst piece of advice for me right now in my life, again, I don't have great answers to all these questions. That's why I want to ask some of these questions to other people. And this may be a kind of a cheesy answer, but I would say that I don't really have a worse piece of advice. I think I've been blessed to be in a situation that no piece of advice has dragged me in too big of a hole. I have a great supporting cast of family, close friends, and business colleagues around me that have helped me get through some bad advice, and then I've consulted with them, and they've kind of steered me in the right direction. And so far, any bad advice to me has just been able to be turned into a good learning opportunity. So it's for me so far, in my young, inexperienced life, I wouldn't deem that I have a worse piece of advice. What has been your most exciting project or role? No doubt about it, just the development of Alvi Delivers. What is the best experience / moment that you've had in that specific role? This is a good question. So I know I just complimented my own question, but it's okay. The best moment and experience, I would say it's, two things. One, just the development of the company, and on January 1st, being able to be at a point where my brother and I were officially partners. It was a pretty long, drawn-out process and a very tough, courageous decision. I would deem my own decision as courageous. And again, anybody out there listening, if I end up getting any viewers and they happen to listen to this, is to take a risk on something that you truly believe in. And when it comes to fruition and the reward is there is no greater feeling in the entire world. And for me to look at something that we had that was a good thing with WeGo, and for me to look further down the line and say, I think this could be better though, and to give up something that meant so much to me and start Alvi Delivers and leave WeGo, keep the same core concept, but leave certain aspects of it, and for that to come to fruition after 6 long months, that was a beautiful moment, and I'm so thankful that my brother was there to do it with me, and I cried a lot on the phone that night, and Michael was very complimentary of me, and his beautiful wife Lexi was very complimentary of me, and I thank both of them so much, and my entire family, for just believing in my ultimate vision, and even when it shifted from something that I left another good thing. And then the second thing within Alvi Delivers has been, no doubt about it, just the getting our first big client. Right, I'll never forget that. And it's John Bavacqua from AMS, another true business professional, highly respected individual that we hope to have on this podcast one day. But AMS Fulfillment, I walk into AMS. It's a legacy relationship that my father and grandfather had with John. So he gave me an opportunity. I walked into his office, and they had this shipment that was for SpaceX, and it was going from AMS to SpaceX. It was a daily run. And at this time, it was literally just me, my good friend CJ Sousa, and one of our other buddies, Chad Lagana, who was our driver, and we had not really a whole lot else going on. We were doing some food delivery, and that was really it. And so this job was very attractive to us because it was going to kind of, start to get us some flow there. It was a reoccurring, consistent thing. I talked to John. It turns out he took me down to the warehouse floor. It turns out their current vendor had a contract that wasn't up until about a year. So we didn't get that specific opportunity. John said, he'll stay in touch. And at the very end of the conversation, I remember sitting there and I was like, because I was really trying to sell him on it, right? And to give us the opportunity. And at the end of the conversation, I just said, do you have anything else? Do you have any other opportunities? And I think the hungry side of me, right, I was getting a little bit antsy, right? It had only been a few months since WeGo had started at the time, but I just wanted more, and I knew that we could do it. I believed in CJ Sousa. I believed in myself. I believed in Chad. I believed in the resources around us that we were going to be able to put something together that could be pretty special. And John said, oh, you know what? There's these couple companies, tech companies that try to get some work from us at AMS, and their names are Axle Hire and Buku Ship. Great. And John amazingly sent those contacts an email. Right. And again, like I said, John's a highly respected individual. Literally, next thing I knew, the next day I was on a call with the lead sales guy from Axle Hire, and that gentleman had put me in contact with the directors of transportation here in Southern California. Next thing I knew, I was on a phone with Mary Jackson and Rosemary, the directors of transportation, and this was July 1st, and they said, hey, Noah, July 4th, we have some extra overflow boxes that need to be delivered in Newport Beach. We have about 100 of them. It's going to need 2 drivers with 2 cargo vans. And I said, whoa, okay. I mean, again, at that point, we didn't have anything. Right? I lended a van from my father's company. We rented another van. They said, be in La Palma, which is 60 miles from Santa Clarita, at 5 a.m. on 4th of July. I call my girlfriend. I say, hey, I'm so sorry. We're not going to be able to go watch fireworks or do anything fun on 4th of July. We are going to get to wake up at 4 a.m. and drive down to La Palma. I need another driver. At this point, we didn't have any drivers. CJ was actually on vacation, and Chad was out for the 4th of July. I go to 2 of my favorite individuals and 2 of the most loyal people in my world is what I call it, and Roger Singh and Alan Mall. And these 2 individuals, talk about perfect strangers, have had such a positive impact on my life, and it was so fitting that they were there for me in that moment. So I call them up. I say, hey guys, we have a huge opportunity, right? And I had no idea what it was going to become. We have a huge opportunity to go down on 4th of July. Who is going to get into a cargo van on 4th of July? Trust me that I have this idea. They're doing me a favor. Wake up at 4 a.m. and drive down to La Palma and go do this route. Well, Roger Singh and Alan Mall did it. So we got him some uniforms. I told them that they slept over at my house. We woke up at 2 a.m. I made sure that they showered. I put uniforms on them, made sure, like my dad always told me, don't have sleepies in your eye. Make sure you're wide awake and alert. And me, my girlfriend, Roger Singh, and Alan Mall go down to the La Palma dock to meet Mary Jackson from Axle Hire at 5 a.m. on 4th of July, 2020. We arrived there. I backed the van into the dock. Roger and Alan had never even been into a cargo van, so they didn't know how to back it up. So I had to get out of my car so the client didn't see us. I backed their van in, and we loaded up our boxes, and we were on our way. We delivered just over 100 boxes that day. The next day, we didn't get any work from them. That following week, they reach out to us and say, hey, we want to give you guys a little bit, a couple more routes. And I said, okay, thank you so much. Next thing I knew, there was that following Thursday, Mary and Rosemary had asked us for a call. And on that call, they told me that they could commit to 280 boxes a day, 280 deliveries a day, reoccurring. And I just about lost my mind. I remember calling John Bavacqua. I left him a voicemail. He didn't answer. And I was just literally weeping on the phone, telling him, thank you so much for the opportunity. You're changing my life, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, I was just saying, thank you so much. I hung up the phone. I texted him. I just said, no need to call back. I know you're busy, but just thank you so much for the opportunity. And that truly propelled what ended up and what still is and what will continue to be a beautiful relationship with Axle Hire, and allowed us to get access to drivers and all these really cool things that we're currently doing right now. But that was by far one of the most exciting moments I've had in my entire life, was receiving that first client. So that's my answer to the question. The next question, what is the biggest misconception people make about you? Again, this is a tough one. Actually, on the first take we had of the video, I probably did a better job, but that was actually the first time I'd really kind of, read through these questions again. The biggest misconception for me, I'm not going to have a great answer on this. This is actually a question that our general manager, Victor Cruz, used to ask. He used to ask new hires. And I remember I was sitting there with Victor one time watching him do an interview. Of course, I was the owner of the company, and I'm supposed to be watching our general manager to make sure he's doing the interview right. Of course, how it ends up, I end up taking something away from him, right? So we're sitting there, and he asked this young lady, he says, what's the biggest misconception people make about you? And she was kind of distraught, right? And she kind of froze up a little bit, and we talked about it after. He said, oh yeah, someone else taught me to ask that question and just see how people react. And I said, man, that's a great question. So I wanted to make sure I give Victor Cruz some credit on that question, and it's going to make the podcast and hopefully reach out to a good amount of powerful individuals here that are going to be on the podcast. Victor Cruz, another one that we got to have sit down in this chair. The biggest misconception that people make about me, I would just say that probably in high school and college, because I was very interested in what I would just deem as focused, and I wanted to keep my circle very small. Maybe some people would say I was a little bit standoffish or not very talkative in those type of social settings. I actually am, very, very social. I love being around people. I just like to keep my core group pretty small. So again, I don't have a great answer to that, but that's mine for the time being. What type of environment do you want to create/work in? This is another one that I feel like I was trained to develop an environment that is, as my dad would say, three-dimensional: funny, loving, and serious. So those are the three dimensions that my father put in our household. Those are the three dimensions that my father taught us on the football field or the baseball diamond, and those are the three dimensions that I watched my father develop his company with, and I want to develop that type of culture as well for any organization or business that I am currently a part of. So I think it's very very important. Obviously, you want to be funny, you want to have a good time with your employees. I love walking around the office and throwing the football around with CJ or Clifford and having a good time with them, kind of making it more of a social setting. Max Escamilla, our business development director, had this idea to do some, we call them Fun Fridays, but now that we might do them on Saturdays. So it's literally just every couple weeks, just getting the team together and going out and doing an event. We were in Ventura last weekend, and it was an awesome experience just to be with everybody and, you kind of get out of the office a little bit. So that's the fun side. The loving side is, I use that word all the time. Right, I truly, truly love my team. Right? I truly love Chris Hernandez. I truly love Victor Cruz and Manuel Gomez and Pedro Mendoza and Sean Shannon and Junior and our team that we have at Sharkies. I truly love the people that we have at Alvey: Kimberly Marty, Clifford Alvarez, Max Escamilla, CJ Sousa, our dispatcher Nick Hart, who does our admin, and like all these individuals, like they owe me nothing. They owe me nothing, but they're loyal to us. Right? And these are the people, these are perfect strangers that are coming in and literally helping me shape my dreams. Like they're making all this stuff come to fruition just out of the goodness of their heart and because they care and they're serious about their job. So I absolutely love the people that I'm with, and I want to develop a culture and make sure that those people know, that they're truly loved and cared for. And then the last, just being serious, right? It's time to work. It's time to work. You got to kind of have that masquerade on a little bit and compete with ourselves. Don't get so caught up in all the outside stuff that's going on. We just need to be the best version of any asset or company that we have. That's what we're trying to do, and I think you only get that from a certain level of extreme focus and care about the craft that you're trying to implement. So that is how those are the type of environments that I want to work in: three-dimensional, funny, loving, and serious. The next question here, and this is probably the one that I can learn the most from. I definitely don't do a good job of this right now, and I'm very interested to learn from some of these higher level executives that have kind of figured it out much more than I have. But the question is, what's your opinion on work-life balance? Again, right now I need to spend more time with my family. I need to be a better brother. I need to be a better son. I need to be a better boyfriend to my girlfriend. And I think, at starting work at such a young age, I'm just very focused on accomplishing my goals. But I definitely need to figure out the work-life balance piece. But my opinion on the matter right now would definitely be that I'm really in a stage in my life and in the mindset to develop myself enough so that I can create the greatest years of my life, right? I was never into the concept of high school were the greatest years of my life. College were the greatest years of my life. To me, I didn't want those to be the greatest years of my life. I want the greatest years of my life to be with my wife and my kids and watching my family grow up. And I want to retire at 50 years old, or at least be in a position to, right? That's just a goal that I've set for myself. And I believe right now that the only way you get there is by really working your butt off right now, and by sacrificing maybe some levels of fun or some levels of exciting type of things right now, and only working and focusing on accomplishing your goals. Now, I enjoy my life. I have, I've referred to her multiple times, my beautiful girlfriend, and I love hanging out with my friends and my family, but I enjoy the work, right? So to me, it doesn't feel like work because I'm so invested in the things that I'm doing, and it's very thrilling to have certain levels of success. That's my current opinion on work-life balance. I know I can do a better job, and I'm very interested to hear some of these true pros and experts and people that have families that have been doing it for a much longer time than I have, and their opinion on that. This next one is just define success, right? So to me, success is a synonym with just happiness, right? And so what are the things that make you happy? Is it health? Is it monetary success? Is it marriage? Is it a good relationship? Whatever, to me, the definition of success is just happiness at the end of the day. I also kind of have this other motto that I guess I would say or something that I live by. I remember I did a podcast with my dad a while back, and I think I said the word win about 15 times in 2 sentences. So success to me is just winning, right? And whatever winning is to you, it's probably something that's going to end up making you happy. But success to me is just being a winner, right? When I think of sports, and I think the greatest athletes, I think of Kobe Bryant and Tom Brady, and those individuals are strictly tested off of and measured off of winning, right? And so to me, that is success. It's not personal stuff. It's not how awesome you think you're doing, but it's truly a measurement on just the levels of success that you've had through just the concept of winning. So again, I'm very interested to hear some true pros and experts answer that question. Next question: how do you want people to think of you / remember you? I'm not too concerned right now about people remembering me necessarily, but in terms of how people think of me, I just want them to think right now of a young, hardworking, laser-focused individual who truly cares about what they're doing and about the people that they're doing it with. And I think that's my answer to that question right now, to keep it short and sweet. What is a motto that is important to you? Again, I know I kind of played with that word win a little bit, but I would say a motto is just be consistent. I think it's so important. I talked about the importance of it, and I think how lucky I was to have parents that really focus on being consistent. But being a leader and trying to have levels of success and get a group of people to do something, you must be consistent, right? I talked a little bit about it with the cash register situation. If me and my brother are bantering on something, and he's telling Kim to do the finance one way and I'm telling her to do it the other way, it's just going to cause greater issues. So as a leader in business or in any aspect, you must be consistent. And so I very much try to have real consistent goals and show up every day and be the same person. I can't be all over the place because then my team's going to be all over the place. This is another question and I strictly put it in here because of our relationship with it, but I'm very curious to see what other people think of it. What's your take on family and business? Obviously, for us, the Alvarez family, we're very big on family business, right? It's a blessing for me to work for a company that my uncle works at, my grandfather works at, my father works at, and my brother works at, right? And the employees of there are truly they're my uncles, right? Uncle Tom and my godfather Pat Egan, and that's my family. So it's worked out for us. It's worked out for me and my brother through our short experience and through the endeavors that we've gone through. I also think it's because me and my brother are very different. So Michael likes to do things that I really don't like to do. I think that offset is, very much needed, because if there was a person exactly like me, we'd probably butt heads a little bit more. But to answer the question, what's your take on it? I would say that as long as it doesn't affect your family relationship, then family and business is a huge plus. Right? Me and my brother, I'll never forget, we were arguing one time on Christmas Eve about if we should close early or stay open. Michael wanted to stay open because he wanted to squeeze out a few extra bucks. I'm the nice one. I'm the one that wanted to let our team members go home and enjoy their Christmas Eve. Michael was not in that example. But the bottom line is that I remember we were in the restaurant literally yelling back and forth at each other about if we should stay open or not. And it was Christmas Eve. And right after that, we were going over to my dad's house. Well, once we got through our work stuff, we went to Christmas Eve, never said anything about it, had a great evening, and everything was fine, right? But I think some families might get caught up in that stuff. Luckily for my family, we've developed a good enough relationship and a core where business and family are completely separate. They just happen to be a huge part of our lives. Last question here, and then we have one bonus question. But the last question is, what is your dream job growing up? My dream job growing up was just always to be an athlete, right? I grew up in a family heavily around sports. My mother was an athlete. My father was a professional baseball player. We played high levels of travel baseball. We played great seasons of football. And I remember growing up and saying, once I entered high school, it was like, well, if I don't go to play after high school, all these years of my life were such a mistake. And I don't really want to do this because I don't really think that many people are necessarily watching the podcast yet. But if you're a young individual out there and you for some reason happen to stumble across this podcast, what sports gives you is so much more than going and playing after. It's the life lessons, and it's the teamwork, and it's the respect factor that you have for a superior. It's to show up on time. It's the mental exercise. My dad used to read a book to me called Mind Gym. It's the mind gym that you are able to develop through those years of playing sports. That's way more valuable than playing sports. So I made a decision after high school that I was done. I was very interested in starting my career and getting going. If you go play sports after high school, props to you. That's just not a decision that I ended up making. As soon as I was done with high school and I graduated, I knew that I wanted to try to be an entrepreneur and start a business. I didn't know what business. I kept it very open, but I just knew that I was hungry to go work. And I felt like I was capable because of the things and the environments that I was around as a young individual. So it was originally, to answer the question, it was originally to be an athlete. And then once I realized I wasn't big, fast, or strong, I stopped with that dream and I went straight over to just wanting to be an entrepreneur at the end of the day. And then this last question, and it'll be funny to kind of hear people say this, the name Perfect Strangers. When you hear Perfect Strangers, what's the first thing you think of, right? I know a lot of people might think it's Stranger Things or whatever. For me, again, Perfect Strangers, it can have multiple meanings, right? And I think the first meaning is really, centered around the concept of the people that we're going to be able to meet, right? And the relationships that we can invest in, those are at the end of the day with strangers, right? And those people, right, you always have your family to be there for, you always have your family to rely on at the end of the day, but the strangers that come into our lives, those are the relationships that you have to invest in, that you have to take the risk to go out and meet someone new, that you have to be willing enough to give all your time, energy, and effort to, right? And those are the people that end up changing your life. For me, in my short business experience, right, Mary Jackson from Axel Hire and Josh Jack from Geodis and Mary Nakagawa from Velocity, these are literally human beings that are changing my life, right? They're giving me opportunities to service them at a high level, and I'm so thankful for that. Right? The team members that I mentioned earlier, the people that I love and care and appreciate, those are strangers at the end of the day, and those strangers help develop. They become a perfect stranger. And then I think the second side to it, and specifically relevant to the podcast, is, these are all kind of questions, and I think we can all learn from someone. I know even going through these questions, like I mentioned, I'm kind of learning from myself. I think someone coming on here and being able to hopefully challenge themselves and feel like this can be a platform or an environment that they can feel comfortable enough to, maybe find something else out about themselves that they didn't even, that maybe they surprise themselves on how they answer a question. Right? And I think obviously for the audience, if we are ever able to get to the point where we develop one where it can be a platform that people are going to come to and learn and listen to these perfect strangers, and particularly during this first segment on the perspectives, they're going to get to learn from these different individuals and how they view different things, because I sure know that I will. That's our first episode. Again, it's very raw. We're literally figuring it out. We're here in our beautiful headquarters of Alvey Delivers, Avenue Stanford, in a little office room. It's hot. I'm sweating. We got to figure something out about the lights. We got to figure out a background here. We need a logo. So if any of you guys are artists out there, open application. Jordan tried to draw for me, and it was the most hideous thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So that definitely didn't go well for the logo. He wants me to promote the handles, but we don't really have the handles. He made Perfect Strangers, but it had a 3 in it, so I don't want to do that. So we're definitely going to delete that Instagram. I know we want to be on Apple Podcast and Spotify. I'm really dependent on Jordan for all that stuff. We're going to be on YouTube if you want to see my face. Oh, if you have a recommendation for someone that should be on the podcast, please give it to us, right? This is truly a blessing for me to be able to do this from the standpoint of I want to learn, right? At the end of the day, I'm just a hungry individual that does not know all that much. And the things that I do know are all from these amazing people, perfect strangers that have given me advice or taught me something. So that's the mode that I'm in right now. I want to seek information, and I need to learn a lot more to benefit myself, and hopefully anybody that watches this podcast or around can benefit from it as well. So that's episode 1. That's it. If the volume didn't work on this one, we are not shooting a third one, so no one will ever see the episode. So that's it. Thank you to anyone that listened, especially if you made it towards the end. We truly appreciate it. And I will just say one last thing, right? Jordan was asking me the other day, he said, what do you want from the podcast? And at the end of the day, I told him, I want to win, right? So at the end of the day, I want this podcast. I want to be the number 1 viewer on Apple Podcasts or whatever it is. And we're going to go out and try to do this thing to the very best of our abilities, right? Like I say with our Alvi Delivers company, we are not a startup. Alvi Delivers is not a startup company. We're 7 months of experience, and to touch the content that we're touching and deal with big time business clients that we're dealing with, those clients don't trust a startup. So we're not a startup. This is a new podcast. It's not a startup podcast. And I think that we can offer something that's valuable for ourselves and also for anybody that gives us the opportunity to listen. So thank you all. And this is episode 1 of Perfect Strangers.